right, before the next speaker, please listen to the soundtrack, which will bring the next speaker on from Sagal, Idaho, Miss Cyndi Steele, Mrs. Cyndi Steele.
Hi everyone, I'm Cyndi Steele. I'm just a regular housewife that's raised 3 children. I had a career as a ballet dancer and a teacher, and then I raised horses on the ranch that my husband and I built together about 15 years ago in northern Idaho. I am the wife of Edgar J. Steele, whose speech you just heard. He's an attorney at law, father of 3, and my loving husband for 27 years. For those that don't know, Ed was falsely accused and wrongly convicted by the government of plotting to kill me and my mother. For the past 2 years, I have been testifying, and I am continuing to testify to his innocence, as I will until he is rightfully set free, or at least as long as I live. I will stand against all the injustices, as to this day the government continues to victimize me and to further punish Ed. Right now, they're denying me any opportunity to even visit my husband. You see, it's not bad enough that they have imprisoned him with a 50-year sentence for crimes he did not commit, which has taken him away from me and our children. I have not seen him since November 2011, and it has only been recently that they have relented and are letting me speak to him on the phone or through email. And they claim the reason is because it'd be a security issue for their prison guards or their staff. Now, the audio clip that was just played was my husband speaking at a conference in Atlanta, Georgia back in 2002, where he was standing up for our freedoms. It is also an excerpt from an upcoming video that I'm having produced that's going to be released this summer, and it's titled "Witness to the Persecution, the Plot to Silence Edgar Steele." Now, as you might imagine, it's rather disturbing to me that my husband said in that speech that the system would dispense with him. So even though he proclaimed he was for equal rights for all and special rights for none, adherence to that creed has cost him everything: his life, liberty, and property. So for patriotically defending every American's constitutional right to free speech, his prophetic words have become reality. They have now silenced and dispensed with him. For Ed and I, it began when the government suddenly injected fear into all of our lives on June 11th, 2010, when they falsely arrested him on fabricated charges. These were charges so flimsy that it took them almost 3 weeks before they found the one they thought would stand up in court. And I'm here to tell you, to this day, none of these stories, including the one told at trial, are consistent with the truth. You know, I'd be here all day if I tell you my whole story, but I'm going to briefly go over some of the things that they did. The most damning evidence that they had were fabricated recordings that they claimed that he was hiring our handyman to have my mom and I killed. I can tell you I've heard the recordings. I didn't believe them then. We've had 2 audio experts analyze the recordings. They debunked them, came back, they're not authentic. And then you might ask, why was he convicted? Because the prosecution and judicial rulings kept our audio experts from being ever heard from the jury. We had absurd judicial rulings by the judge. He kept all the evidence from the jury, and several times, you know, it made it hard for the defense attorney to put on any evidence because, as he told the defense attorney, quote, "You cannot say anything that will make the government look bad. Never mind that they were breaking laws." All during the time from the time of my husband's arrest, they violated his attorney-client privileges. So everything he told his attorney and everything his attorney, you know, was telling him was going right back to the prosecutor, and they allowed it. There was subordination of perjury by experts and their confidential source. You know, and then, they utilized brutality. And I don't know what, I'm not sure if it was just to break Ed, or frankly, I'm not sure it wasn't to kill him. My husband was very ill when he was arrested. They threw him into solitary confinement and took all his medications away from him. He had a very serious heart condition that he had prior to his arrest, that for all rights he should have died. Only 1% of people survived what he had. He did. But they took his meds away and threw him in solitary confinement. And, he didn't know why he was in there because he hadn't done anything wrong. So he was very confused and, a horrible time for all of us. We have the FBI Special Agent Saka, who we've caught in perjury. Their exculpatory evidence had been hidden. They also presented a false confession. My husband, to this day, has maintained his innocence, but the agents got on the stand and testified and made it look like he had confessed. And, what was funny, not funny, I shouldn't say funny, it's ironic. They had recordings, they had 3 recordings, 2 of which they only let me hear 2 of them. The 3rd one, they kept telling me it wasn't ready yet, and of course, I thought that was odd. What does it take to get a recording ready? Well, as time has gone on, we learned that there's about 45 minutes of this recording, because we have a friend that was there the day he was arrested, that's missing. And this is what the agents came on to attest to. And then they intimidated witnesses, and that witness was me. During the whole beginning, I can tell you, I felt more pressure from the FBI and the government for me to tell something other than what I knew as the truth. And the one that I have a hard time getting over is that they put me and anyone that was around me in danger. After my husband's arrest, 4 days after my husband's arrest, as I was on my way to the federal courthouse for his hearing, I found a bomb on my car. And the only reason I found that bomb is because I had time to spare, I'd been traveling a lot, and I decided to go in and have an oil change, because I didn't need card problems on top of everything else that was going on. As time went on, and as I listened to recordings and all the evidence, it has become very clear that the FBI knew about that bomb at a minimum of 5 days before I found that bomb. They put my life, they put my children's life at danger, because there was a point they were in the car. They put my granddaughter, who was 2, at danger. They put anybody that was near me, driving by me, in danger. But they didn't care. They had one thing in mind, and that was to take my husband out and silence him. And what's the scary part is if I hadn't found that bomb, I would have been sitting on federal property. And I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I'd be standing here today, because if they would have found it on my car on federal property, you know, didn't happen, but I have a hunch that I'd be sitting there, at least in an opposite cell of my husband's. They also got to Ed's defense attorney, which answers a lot of questions why he didn't even try to put on a defense for my husband. Ed's defense attorney, which they kept under wraps, which we didn't know about, was being investigated by the same government that was after my husband. And after my husband was sentenced is when they came out with the 29-count felony indictment against my husband's attorney. Now, I'd love to tell you more, because there is so much more about the government and judicial misconduct, on how the government has destroyed our family and wrongly imprisoned my husband to a 50-year sentence. And that's a death sentence, because he is 67, well, he's going to be 67 years old this week. He was in poor health when he went in. The last time I saw him in November, he lost a tremendous amount of weight. And there's rumors that something's wrong, that they want to do surgery on him. I don't even know what it is. He doesn't even know what it is. Doesn't make me feel good that they want to do surgery on him. I can tell you that. But I'm also here not to tell my story, but because it's not just about what happened to Ed, me, our family. It's about how the government is doing the same to a lot of people all across America. It's about the sad state of affairs as our legal system continues to allow our government to go to extreme lengths to silence people that speak out against it. This is about how elements in the government continue the silent coup to which Ed so often referred. A takeover of the American system by the banking industrial government complex at the complete expense of our freedoms. It is about why our silence is not the answer. For in the end, it will not save us from this out-of-control government and judicial system. In a true sense, it only helps them to accelerate and further their criminal behavior as they seek complete power over all of us. Now, the biggest question I always get is why the government would do this to my husband. Well, Ed persisted in his volunteer work, unselfishly offering his time and legal skills to the poor and disenfranchised. He was always a spokesman against injustice, and at the time of his arrest, he was researching a book exposing international human sex trafficking. He was known as the attorney for the damned because he took on the cases of people deemed to be politically incorrect, who themselves were demonized by the government and its puppet press. He took on such cases because, one, he believed in everyone's right to competent representation. He opposed the government when it brought false charges against innocent people in order to promote its agenda of political correctness and conformity. And as he said in his speech, they were cases that gave him a forum to educate the public that the government is trying to destroy the American way of life. Ed believes so strongly in truth, justice, and our freedom of speech that even the death threats against me and my family, which you heard earlier, and they weren't the only ones, but it didn't stop him from speaking out and standing up for America, just like we are here today. You know, as Thomas Jefferson said, all that tyranny needs to prevail is for men of good conscience to remain silent. Well, I'm here today because I'm not going to remain silent. To remain silent and not stand up for the truth and justice would be a betrayal to both Ed and me, our children, the memory of my mom, and for all Americans. I'm standing up to bring out the truth and bring my husband home to his children and me. I'm standing up for all of us and our children, for I don't wish any part of this tragedy that has happened to my family on anyone. I applaud everyone for speaking up and for Freedompalooza for providing me a venue to do so. I encourage those that are afraid to speak out, to stop living in fear. Speak up. We are all important, and together we can be heard. In Ed's case, the government invented a fictional crime where I supposedly was Ed's victim. You know, yes, I am a victim, but I'm not a victim of my husband. I'm a victim of the government. But I am standing up and I'm speaking out against their victimization because Ed is completely innocent, and the FBI, the prosecutors, the federal judge committed a host of crimes in order to deceive the jury into convicting my husband. Yes, and you heard me correctly. And if you get a chance, I have a video here. I have few copies with me. This is just a rough cut, but it does show some of the things that I was talking about, the injustices that went on in my husband's case. Hopefully by the end of the summer, the full version of this will be released and it will be available on our site. And this video, it will prove to you that Edgar was framed. It will show you what the jury was not allowed to see, and it will expose the government's phony case. It will show how the rogue agents violated their oath of office and multiple laws to set up a completely fraudulent case against my husband, making him a victim of the government as well. I'm Cyndi Steele, and I'm speaking up to win my husband's freedom and so our family can be whole again. And I'm speaking out so we can end this type of tyranny, or any tyranny for that matter, from happening to others. I'm speaking out because I want our children, all of our children, to be able to live the freedom we are here fighting for. I've listened to all the speakers here over the last 2 days, and they have carried the same message. We need to be vocal. Whether it's speaking at conferences, at events like Freedompalooza, talking on radio shows, writing articles, having a website presence, writing our leaders, and anything else that will help restore our freedom and get the word out and let people know that they're not alone. They can stand up and speak up. You know, whether what I'm doing, speaking, writing, I'm doing anything and everything I can will win my husband's freedom, I sadly don't know. I feel like I'm against a big monster that I haven't found how to defeat yet. but I hope it helps to show people how they can wrongly imprison people on false charges in order to silence and dispense with them. But I'm also here to say, don't be afraid. I'm not. That's what they want from us. That is what they want from us. They want us to crawl in a hole and be silent. So if you're interested in the video, you can see me afterwards, which would tell you a lot more about my story. And right now, what I want to do is thank Freedompalooza and Paul Tapetti for giving me this opportunity to speak up, fight for the rightful freedom of my husband, Edgar J. Steele, so maybe our family can be whole again one day, and also protect a lot of other families. Thank you.
Cyndi Steele. Love her husband. Thank you so much, Ryan. Now I gotta find my glasses. It's a tragedy what's happened to Edgar. We met him personally probably like 10, 12 years ago. He's always been a friend of the band, and he's always supported the unwashed masses, the ones that should be heard. He's always been there for them. So we're trying to be there for him now, and I can't thank Cyndi enough for traveling all the way from Idaho to be here. That's how important it was, man. Anyway, Jimmy.